Hi there. This year is tough for a lot of startup founders. The markets started sliding down, and then the sales cycles have increased a lot. And we're not seeing the same traction that we saw probably 2, 3 years ago. Of course, clearly, pandemic has contributed a lot of growth for many companies, but then that is not the case anymore. And what we have seen, especially at Product 10X, is this. Startups are going through a lot of transformation at this point of time. And for startups, this year is going to be the question of life and death. We are humbled to actually see at Product 10X that each and every startup that we are working with, every founder is actually putting in their effort to push through a lot of that rigor and expertise into these startups. But still, there are multiple factors that we realize that is contributing to either the success or the failure. There are four things that we realize talking to a lot of founders that they are going through, right? And especially in this episode, what we want to cover is regarding the founder conflict that is happening and unable to control the burn rate and not enough time or willingness to iterate the product. And the last one is to really thinking about focusing too much on VC money, right? Let's take one by one. Number one, the founder conflict. Of course, this is not an issue if there is only one founder, so that's all good. But because of the changing times, when I say changing times, this year, a lot of, let's say, there are multiple founders, and then even if all of you are on the same page, they're all working full time on the startup and all that, the financial situation has changed for many of them. What I mean by that is maybe some of you thought the money is there in the stock market or there are in savings or maybe spouse is working. And in reality, what has come down to is the money sources have dried up for many of co-founders that are there, which means everybody is really struggling to say, oh my goodness, what can I sustain for the next 6 months? Can I sustain for the next 3 months? That's there for them top of the mind. That's one of the main reasons that we see the founders are falling apart, unfortunately. So that's something as you go through, make sure that whether this is the reason or it could be any other reason, but make sure that the co-founders are actually working through the toughest of the challenges, even if they are uncomfortable. Make sure that you are taking time to talk it through. Super important, especially this year. Don't wait or don't push these difficult conversations to the next week, next month, next quarter. Nothing is going to change and they are not going to go away magically. So make sure that you have a very healthy co-founder relationship within your team. Number two, make sure that you are looking at your expenses and revenue in a very microscopic way. And when we say that, you absolutely need to know the revenue that you are getting. That's imperative. But at the same time, co-founders don't even know how much money they are spending and what is the total money that they are spending and where the money is going, how much money is going in the infrastructure costs, development costs, the engineering, sales, and the marketing, the ads that they are spending. It's super important for you to make sure that every single dollar is accounted for. And not only that, that's one part of having transparency to know where the money is going. And the second part is to know that is it generating the ROI? Is it generating enough value for us? As you go through, maybe last year you may have taken different decisions on the capacity and the number of people that you need, but maybe now that's not the case anymore. It is super unfortunate, but you need to differentiate between do you survive versus do you die. Keeping your dream alive is very important for founders and startups, and making sure that the customers that you brought on are still being serviced. They are still happy. You need to, unfortunately, make those decisions at this point of time. And if so, make sure that you are putting the money in the right resources, in the right place where it is giving you the ROI. So that's really where we absolutely encourage every founder out there, with especially the seed stage companies, make sure you analyze the expenditure every single week, every single month, and it is going to be the right value that it is creating for yourself. That's as an example. A lot of founders have put in the money on saying, oh, you know what, we are going on the product led growth, and then we absolutely need the inbounds where the prospects are coming to us and then we are servicing them. But especially this year, just think about, nobody is really looking for a solution, or they are not really looking for a new solution. In fact, a lot of companies, especially B2Bs, they are trying to consolidate the tools that they have. It's not as though that people are going there on the Google searching for a specific solution out there. If that is the case, then you may want to put in the right amount of money in actually making sure that you define your ICP, you know exactly who those segments of your prospects are, and then reach out to them, right? Instead of spending money on the ads where you may or may not know if those are the right people that you're reaching out, and not knowing the conversion rates and all that, you may want to actually increase your revenue by putting in the right amount of money on the outreaches and outbound effort. So those are the things that you need to definitely have a conversation internally, look at the data, look at the trends that are out there, and make sure that you do the right things. That's really about the burn rate. The third aspect that we all need to look into is the ability for us to iterate the product. Sometimes people are iterating it too fast or too slow, and both are detrimental for startup success. When we say that, think about what was necessary or what is a must 2 years ago or even last year is not the same thing right now. So if so, it is imperative for every founder, every sales leader to say, what is it that the customers are looking for now? Sometimes nice to have becomes must haves based on the economy, based on what customers are looking for. And sometimes must haves now have become nice to haves. And if so, that transition is very important for us to keep a pulse of, and then make sure that within your product, you are bringing in net new features that are actually valued and being used by your customers. Number two, when you're looking at the prospects, make sure that even if these prospects are not really signing up, or you haven't really signed, they haven't really bought into your thing, ask about the problems and the challenges that they're going through. That actually brings in a lot of insight into what you can improve or what you can make better. Because sometimes it may be that you are actually going in one particular direction, but then a lot of your prospects are saying, hey, I really need the help in a different direction. Maybe those are the conversations. If you are seeing that a lot, then that is an indication for you and your startup to say, maybe we need to change the direction, pivot, and do things that are needed to generate the revenue. So at this point of time, make sure that your product and your engineering team are really geared up towards making sure that we are doing the right iterations to provide the value to your customers, and make sure that you are listening to your prospects as well, right? So that's the third aspect. And the fourth and very important one is, this is the time where a lot of VCs are just holding back. They're not investing unless they are definitely doing the follow-on rounds so that the existing portfolio survives and they continue to move forward. But then the net new investments have become much tighter, or the gauge or the due diligence has become super tough, and the parameters have definitely gone up. So if that is the case, don't just simply depend on VC money saying that, oh, you know what, I have a great plan, but I need the VC money for that. Let's say in the worst case scenario, even if you don't get your VCs to invest in your company, what's the plan for you to survive for the next year is going to be important. And in which in some cases, which means that you right now, this month itself, you need to focus on the revenue generation, whether you will talk about the product features or the way you do the outbounds or sales angle. Make sure everything is aligned towards generating the revenue. I think that's going to be very important, because don't depend on the VC money at this point of time, because if you get it, that's great. Of course, you will have a lot more leeway to really experiment and innovate much faster. That is very clear. But if not, just don't depend or have a one-sided strategy to say, once I get this VC money, this is how my growth is going to be. But also have a pathway where if you don't get any outside funding, what's the plan, right? Those are the things that we've definitely seen a lot of our startups have been struggling with. And then that's really our guidance. So just to repeat, make sure that from the founder's point of view, you talk to each other and all the difficult discussions are talked about right now. Make sure that there are no open-ended threads that are out there. Very important. Number two, make sure that your burn rate is under control, and in which case, sometimes make sure that you are bringing in your advisors and making sure that these expenses are making sense. It's not just for you, because I'm sure many times the CEO or the co-founders are so involved. It might mean for them that, oh, everything is absolutely needed, but then bring in your board or advisors and have a fresh pair of eyes on the expenses. They'll be able to give a better view into it, and making sure that your product is providing the enough value, and then you are iterating in the right frequency of the customer feedback as well as the prospect feedback. Fourth, last but not least, is really about don't just depend on the VC money at this point of time. Have alternate plans on how you want to survive and improve your customer acquisition rates. Because one of the things that I've heard from many of my VC friends is that nobody is going to penalize you for slow growth at this point of time. We want you to see the growth. We want you to make sure that you build the IP, and that's really where you want to be focusing on. Hope this helps. Again, we've seen a lot of startups going through the Product 10X as well as other partner companies, and we are here to help all the founders. Please do reach out to us, and hope this helps. Thank you.